Okay, so, continuing our series on the end of the Spider-Verse, in the last part we saw Shathra, an evil spider-wasp deity, attack 616 New York with a swarm of spider-wasps. Then Morlun comes through a portal and starts to fight Peter Parker, Miles Morales, Silk, and Jessica Drew, until Spider-Man Noir comes in and kills Jessica Drew. Afterwards, Morlun is able to tell all the spider people the Spider-Verse has fallen and a threat greater than the Inheritors is on its way. Just as all of these hive versions of spider people from across the Spider-Verse start to come through these web-like portals, and during all of this commotion, those little spider wasps are still stinging pedestrians and all the spider people from the 616 universe. So now we can start issue 2 of this run. Hi, my name is Flyer Zyler. This is the end of the Spider-Verse, from the current Spider-Man run in comics. And if you like comics to be broken down in a more digestible and easier to understand way, as well as being able to see all the amazing artwork from these books, then please like, share, and subscribe, and let's read. So issue 2 starts off in a very interesting way, opening with a Spider-Man very similar to the MCU Tom Holland Spider-Man with a close connection to Stark and a Peter tingle. From what I could find, this is a version of the MCU Spider-Man that was never dusted when Thanos snapped his fingers and wiped out half the universe. I thought this was a very cool concept to see and imagine, like just how that universe would have turned out, but it seems like it's just not all that great here, because in this reality, as Spider-Man goes to check out a vandalism incident, he is jumped by hive versions of Spider-Man 2099, Spider-Ham, and Spider-Man India. It's assumed that the Tom Holland stand-in was also turned as well, and that's when we cut back to the mainline 616 Spider-Man storyline. Right back where we left off with the standoff in the streets until the portal is opened by Spider-Girl, who goes by Arena, which means spider in Spanish. I very likely butchered that pronunciation. I just wanted to point a light at the fact that if you do pay attention to the Spider-Person's names, they are all references to existing spider species or pop culture spider characters. With Arena is also Spider UK, who, as the name suggests, is a Spider-Person who operates in the UK. Not super original, not nearly as cool and unique as Arena, but they are there as well. They both step through a different portal similar to what you might see Doctor Strange use in the MCU, and Arena tells Morlun, Silk, and Miles and Peter to get out of there. They do not stand a chance, because if they do stay, they would essentially be fighting the entirety of the Spider-Verse, who all share one goal: kill or unravel 616 Peter Parker. So with no other options, they run through the portal and are brought to a place called Earth 616 Beta. Now, Earth 616 Beta is essentially a rough draft of sorts for what the mainline Marvel Universe should look like, and since it's a beta, it is not a real universe. The analogy I think of to imagine how this works is I imagine a suit, and the extra button on the bottom of like a button-up shirt or a suit, it's there behind the fabric and cannot be seen unless you look behind the intended design. So if you were to look at a suit, you could not view this spare or beta button because it's not connected to the rest of the suit design. And this is why Shathra cannot see or travel to the Earth 616 Beta universe, because it is not connected to the web of life and destiny. It is not part of the intended design of the multiverse. So for the time being, Earth 616 Beta is the only real safe place for Peter Parker, because Shathra has no knowledge of it and no way to travel there due to it not being connected to the rest of the known multiverse. This is also where we learn the full implications of the Totem Dagger, the weapon that uncanonized Jessica Drew, come to full fruition. Miles and Silk are losing their memories of Jessica Drew because she at this point literally does not exist as Spider-Woman. Her story was entirely rewritten, meaning that every event she was a part of no longer happened. Arena also shares that the spider wasps, when they sting a spider person, that's how Shathra gains more wasp minions. However, 616 spider people are immune to the control, which is why 616 universe is one of the last universes that Shathra attacked. We are also told that a multiversal spider team has been waiting on Peter's arrival, and this team consists of the Spider Hunter, which is a version of Kraven that got spider powers, Spider UK, Spinstress, who is a spider-powered princess from Earth 423, Webster, who's just a little cute guy, Webweaver, who is a spider person that is also a fashion designer, Sun Spider, who is Charlotte Weber, who has a form of EDS, and the Night Spider, who is Felicia Hardy, aka Black Cat, who got spider powers, and she's basically just a spider-powered thief. We are also told just why Morlun is willing to help out these spider people, because remember, the whole deal of the Inheritors is to hunt down and consume the life essence of spider totems. As it turns out, Morlun returned to Loom World to check on his family, who at the end of the Spider-Geddon event, before the end of the Spider-Verse event, left the Inheritors as infants on Loom World in the care of Spider-Man. Remember that Loom World is also where Shathra is, and she is turning all these spider people in the multiverse, so Spider-Man is also turned into a wasp and ate the infant Inheritors, which causes Morlun to want revenge and eventually fighting Shathra. However, even he is not strong enough to beat her. So he is found by Madam Web and joins the multiversal spider team because the enemy of an enemy is a friend. While Morlun is delivering all this exposition, Miles starts to notice that his skin is changing and hearing Shathra speak to him. And we are shown this panel, which is super cool, with Wasp versions of Arachnite, the Insomniac Spider-Man, Spider-Man wearing Prodigy's suit, Spider-Man with Doc Ock arms, a Spider-Man wearing Ricochet's suit, and Scarlet Spider. Now, Miles should be immune to the Spider-Wasp stinging him because Miles is from the 616 universe, except he's not, at least not originally. And this is because Miles Morales originates from the Ultimates universe, which the Ultimates universe in comics is just what would happen if heroes came to exist in the early 2000s, and that's where Miles originates from. However, during the events of Secret Wars from 2015, the same story where God King Doom kills Thanos, Miles Morales offered like a month-old cheeseburger to arguably one of the top 5 most powerful people in all of Marvel Comics, Molecule Man Owen Reese, and when Molecule Man remade the universe at the end of that story, he gave Miles Morales essentially dual existence, and it is an anomaly, existing in 2 universes again, all because Miles was nice and gave the dude some food. You just have to love comic logic and allowing for these goofy things to become serious consequences, but that is the reason that he begins to turn into a Wasp, only partially, as he's able to fight it off, but Miles cannot stay in the 616 Beta universe, because if he does turn, then Shathra will find them, and the war will be over. So Hunter Spider and Miles decide to travel to Loom World and distract Shathra themselves, and basically attack them in their own front lines, so that way even if Miles loses all control, it won't really matter because she won't gain any new information, she'll just gain a new Wasp minion, essentially. Getting into issue 3 now, Peter Parker hears of a way to try and reverse the effects of the Totem Dagger with an artifact of Neith. Neith was mentioned in the last part, but we kinda skimmed over her. So Neith is actually a real goddess from the Egyptian pantheon. She's the goddess of creation, wisdom, weaving, and war, with some calling her the mother of Ra. So in comics it makes sense that Neith would be attached as a spider deity, because of her connection to creation and weaving. In fact, the Great Web, that is Neith's design. She made that in the comics. Neith is also the younger sister to Shathra. Shathra is a fictional character, not part of any real world pantheon, just putting that disclaimer here. But Shathra had her own design for the multiverse called the Great Nest, and that is how and why this storyline is taking place, because Shathra is trying to break the Great Web and set up her Great Nest design. Okay, so Peter Parker, Arena, and Night Spider travel to Central America for the MacGuffin that will re-canonize Jessica Drew. Meanwhile, back on Earth 616 Beta, Morlun gets the idea that if he got his hand on the Totem Dagger, he could just stab Shathra and it would erase all of this in its entirety, because everything that has happened because of Shathra would be rewritten. So Morlun travels back to 616 Manhattan to get the Totem Dagger from Spider-Man Noir, and Morlun does not care what he has to do to get the dagger. So it's assumed that Morlun will kill Spider-Man Noir for the dagger, so to stop Morlun from killing any spider people, Silk, Sunspider, Webweaver, Spinstress, and Webster go after him so Morlun doesn't get too brutal. This next little bit moves kinda fast, okay? We're gonna be following 2 of the 3 teams that are currently running around in the Spider-Verse. We're gonna be following Silk and Morlun, and we're gonna be following Peter Parker, Arena, and Night Spider, okay? So all of them have their own goals, all of which Madam Web says it is not part of the plan to win. Just to explain who Madam Web is and what she can do, so Madam Web has a complex history through the comics, but for the sake of this story, her name is Julia Carpenter and she is a powerful psychic with the ability to see into the future. Kinda like how Doctor Strange could see into the future in Infinity War, that is the type of role that she plays in this story. However, she did not see all of these potential outcomes. She didn't see Morlun getting the idea to go and stab Shathra with the Totem Dagger. She did not see Peter Parker running away from her plan to try and go save Jessica Drew immediately. Because Peter Parker is Plan A. Peter Parker is part of this prophecy where he is the chosen one to end the curse of Shathra and save the Spider-Verse. So with Plan A gone, and Morlun and the rest of the Spider people running around doing all these busy work errands, she basically turns to what is essentially her ace in the hole and hints to a Plan Z. If you get that reference, I love you. So starting with Morlun, he travels to 616 New York and immediately slams Spider-Man Noir, telling him that he's devoured a soul like his before, and teases him saying that he wonders if his shall be just as bitter. That's when the Spider team behind Morlun shows up, and they're trying to figure out how they will rein in Morlun because he's so much stronger than them. As they're working up a plan to try and stop Morlun, Spinstress is stung by a spider wasp. Immediately, Shathra notices that a new voice has been added to her hive. All of the knowledge that Spinstress has, Shathra now has too. So in her hive, she tells her brood, "I know where they have been hiding. I see where they have gone and where Peter Parker is. Children of Shathra, it is time." Time to leave the nest, not as my hive, but as my swarm. And this is an awesome panel because you see just how powerful Shathra's army is, because you have all of these spider people going out for one goal, Peter Parker. So now we're with Peter, Arena, and Night Spider. They have just made it through the booby-trapped Temple of Neith and found the MacGuffin. Just as they grab it, all of these web portals begin to open up and the swarm starts to come in. Some spider people in this panel that I did not mention earlier are the Hulk and the Prowler. Remember, Madam Web can see all of this, and back on Earth 616 Beta, she is telling Spider UK, they're doomed. We all are. And it looks like Plan Z will need to be set in motion and pulled from the filing cabinet. This next little bit moves kind of fast, okay? We're going to be following 2 of the 3 spider teams that are currently running around in the Spider-Verse. We're going to be following Silk and Marloon, and we're going to be following Peter Parker, Arena, and Night Spider, okay? So let's start with Silk and Marloon in mainline New York. So Marloon is kicking ass, and the Hive Spiders are running away and running through a portal. As they're escaping, Marloon is able to see that Spider-Man Noir's scabbard is empty. The totem dagger is not in New York. So then we cut back to Peter, Arena, and Night Spider in Neith's temple as they're running for their lives, trying to use booby traps as a way to slow down the swarm. Arena is unable to make a portal because if she made one, then the swarm would just be able to follow behind. So their only hope is to get some measure of distance and finally escape. That is until the Hive Spiders from New York drop down through a portal and Spider-Gwen drops down onto Peter Parker and stabs Peter Parker with the totem dagger. And he starts to explain that he sees his entire story being undone. Meaning that Spider-Gwen just killed mainline 616 Spider-Man. Peter Parker was never bitten by the radioactive spider, and his canon, his story, never played out. So for all of you that hate the One More Day storyline or the Clone Saga, any of that, you will love this because it never happened. Spider-Man is no longer canon. That is going to be where we end this episode off. These 2 issues are filled with a lot, but man, issue 3 just ends, doesn't it? I can only imagine the anticipation for issue 4 if you're not reading this in bulk, because already we got Spider-Woman and Spider-Man dead. Miles is currently being corrupted by Shathra. I am loving this series, and I hope you are enjoying it as well. If you want to support me or the channel directly, there are links to a GoFundMe and my Patreon in the description box below. Content goes up a week early on Patreon, and you get a more in-depth look into the process of these videos and me. But with that being said, I hope you enjoyed. Like and subscribe, share if you loved this, and if you hated this, then share it with an enemy, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.